Hey, it's Keen with Alaska Bush School, and today we're going to be setting up some tarp shelters. Okay, the first thing I think about with any sort of shelter, whether it be a tent or a tarp or anything like that, is the location. So this gravel bar right here is a little ways off the creek. It's high, away from the water, should, it rain and the river come up a whole bunch. It's pretty open, so that way, even though there's like a game trail at the end of the gravel bar there, big animals like moose or bears aren't gonna stumble by without seeing me first. And it also has a lot of tie down points you can see here from these willows, which will make setting up the tarp quite a bit easier. All right, so this is the AquaQuest Sil Nylon tarp. I've got my attachment points already tied to the ends here. I like to coil them up so they kind of stay out of the way and don't get all tangled. And it's a pretty big tarp. I really enjoy it, and it can fit easily, 5, 6, 7 people under it, with a campfire out when you're camping. So I'm going to show you my favorite kind of tarp shelter, which is basically, just stringing the tarp with a couple poles high enough that it's above your head and you can have the fire and not have to worry about the smoke. So it's not a survival shelter, but I use this far more than any other kind of tarp shelter. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 4 corners of the tarp and I'm going to go ahead and tie those down real tight. All right, for the corners, when I tie them down, I'm just going real simple with knots. I'm just doing 2 half hitches with 1 wrap around these willows, and they're super sturdy. Haven't ever had one of these come undone. Okay, so that didn't take too long. Tarp is tied down from all 4 corners. I just need to go ahead and find a couple now branches about 10 feet tall, straighter the better. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go find a tall willow, and I'm using this foldable bow saw. I love this thing. There's the brand and this type of saw I'm using. And we are following the game trail, so I made sure to put the bear spray in my pocket. If you're not familiar with following game trails, this provides a good look at what one looks like around here, and you can see definitely some moose sign for sure walking through here. Okay, yeah, one of these guys will do. All right, I've got the willow here, and it just threw a loop in my paracord, and you can see there's a little limb right there that I've left on there so it stops, but you could just also use a clove hitch and put it around the willow as well. So I think this is about right. I had to take about 1 foot of slack out of my lines to make them a little looser. Yep, that'll do it. So making a good tarp shelter is really all about the tie downs, the anchor points. So if you don't have willows available, one thing that I often will do, because we're camped on gravel bars, and often in the interior especially, we're trying to get as far away from the brush as possible. And if you can't figure out why, chances are you haven't lived in Alaska. Anyway, people from Alaska will know why, but you want to get as far away, right in the middle of that gravel bar. You light your fire, and then you don't have to deal with the swarms. But anyway, these big rocks will do just fine. Usually what I will do is I'll go ahead and I'll take, my paracord, and I'll just wrap them a couple of times. Not all rocks are created equal, so I'm trying to use this rock that has this little crack in it, so that way I can go ahead and tie it nice and secure. And what I'll usually do, I don't really worry about getting it tight right away, because what I do is I just go ahead and then I adjust the rock from there, where I want it to be. This rock is a minimum size, and then in any sort of wind or weather, I would want to go ahead and pile like maybe 5 to 8 more of these kind of rocks around it to go ahead and keep it secure. Okay, option number 2 for anchor points. These are really good stakes from Nortent. We have a Gammy 6 hot tent, by the way, a wonderful tent. Can't rave about that enough. With the little titanium stove on the in the cold weather. But you can also go ahead and use stakes in ground like this. It will work pretty well. In tundra it'll work pretty well. In sand and loose gravel, the stakes really aren't super effective, but there's other things you can do there too. So I go ahead and take my stake. You can use like a little wooden baton for this if you don't have a hatchet around. With these stakes, I go ahead and I really hammer them all the way in so that just the rope is there. Take my rope, and then here you can go ahead and do a little taut line hitch. If you remember your knots, around, around, up, and around. By the way, the taut line hitch is probably my all-time favorite knot, because check this out. Just adjust it. Doesn't slip, nice and tight. Another option you can use for an anchor, if you didn't want to fasten this or make this into a stake, is you can also use sticks like this or any sort of log, and you can go ahead and either bury them, which is super secure, or you can even just lay them down flat and put rocks on top of them. So one thing I like to do is if I'm going to bury this thing first, I'll go ahead and I'll wrap probably just one time, because I want to be able to kind of pull this secure and do a taut line hitch here. So I'll go ahead and lay it down like so. And then I'll just go ahead and pile, big heavy rocks on top. Do another taut line hitch. That gets about as tight as I want it to go. Okay, let's take a look inside. Probably have about a 9-10 foot ceiling, which is really nice for keeping the smoke out when you're out camping. So it's not a shelter designed to keep the wind out. You can tie the other sides down if you want, but it does a really good job of keeping out the rain and keeping all your stuff dry and providing a nice space to have a campfire out of the weather.